Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about Bitcoin, obviously, because we have seen something really cool happening, and that is Bitcoin hitting 100,000 US dollars, which obviously fantastic milestone, a really landmark achievement for something that, obviously has been battered and bruised multiple times. We've had institutions, we've had governments, we've had politicians, we've had basically everybody you could imagine tell us that Bitcoin's dead and it's a scam and it's a this and it's that and it's a whatever else. But what we are obviously seeing now is these people are all coming around to it. And a lot of the reason that we've seen such a run up over the past year or so is because people have, obviously Donald Trump was like very pro crypto. He got elected. We're seeing many more people within the US Congress getting elected that are pro crypto. I mean, the kind of the international attitude towards crypto is softening. Like there's a lot more really bullish things going on. And so obviously for those of you, particularly if you were buying around the time of the FTX collapse and all this other stuff, major props to you. You obviously this is a well-earned milestone, and obviously pocketbook probably looking pretty good as well if you bought all the way down at that point. If you are new, obviously welcome. I do think we're still very early on within the kind of crypto ecosystem. I think that this is really only the start. I mean, I think things are going to get really crazy, and this is really just the beginning of what we're starting to see with political legitimacy, institutional legitimacy, a lot of that type of stuff. We are going to get a little bit to more of that here in a second, but to start I want to take a look at the crypto bubbles, because what we can see, even though Bitcoin is reaching new all-time highs, it might be blocked by my picture, but we can see Ethereum also 4.3% up on the day. Another really great move, both by Bitcoin and Ethereum. Solana is lagging a little bit. We haven't really seen Solana do a whole lot over the past week or so. I think this is okay just because of the fantastic moves and performance we've seen out of Solana this year already. But we also can see kind of with some of the smaller alts, IOTA down almost 15%, Tron down over 15%, XRP down over 15%, HTX down 15%. So, I mean, there's a lot of the smaller alts that really have been doing quite well over the past couple of days, pulling back a little bit. I don't think this is really the end of the world. I mean, particularly if we're looking at like something like XRP, HBAR being another one. These have moved insane amounts over the past couple of days, right? So the fact that we're seeing, 9-10%, not really too concerning in my opinion. If we do look at the chart, though, what we can see on the Bitcoin chart is we are kind of bumping into the top of this Bollinger Band up here. We can already see we've put in a little bit of a wick. This is the daily candle, so we obviously have a lot of time left. I mean, this obviously could come all the way back up to the top. I do think, though, that it's kind of always been my opinion that once we hit 100,000, there's going to be a bunch of profit taking going on, and we might even see a little bit more longer term of a pullback. Hard to say for sure, right? I mean, I'm not in the prediction business just because I can't tell the future, but I do think that there is kind of a realistic probability that maybe we see a larger pullback, maybe coming down into the 80,000 range potentially. I do think it's, the market is very hot. It's potentially about that time. If we do jump over the market overview real quick, we'll come back to this and look at it in a little bit more detail, but we can see we are sitting in extreme greed. We have been sitting in greed or extreme greed for the past couple of months at this point. So, I mean, definitely something that is very much a concern here. So I do think that there's a point at which, maybe that kind of comes back down a little bit. You can see, we are sitting overbought right now. We've been in overbought for a decent bit of the past about month or so. We did kind of come back into the range here for about a week or so. Well, we kind of just chopped around over here, but now that we have made that move to the upside and broken 100,000, we are showing overbought on their RSI. We will get to the market overview, and you will see, as we saw from that little bit of a snapshot, basically almost everything is overbought at this point. So it is looking like we might see a little bit of a pullback here. I just think that 100,000 is such a psychological number. I think we're going to be seeing a substantial amount of profit taking, particularly a lot of people who got in before the election. I mean, we've seen almost a 40% run in less than a month. That's not super common usually. So I do think we are going to be seeing a little bit of profit taking going on here. We might see a crawl back. I don't know if it's going to happen right now. I don't know if it's going to happen next week. I don't who knows when it's going to happen for sure, right? But I do think we probably will see a little bit of a pullback within the larger market. Retail starting to get a little bit more involved. We've got, institutions getting more involved, a lot of this type of stuff. This seems to me like it would be a good time, shake some people out, get people to go away a little bit. I mean, we could see even just from this really relatively small pullback, we got into like the low 90s here. So not really even a 10% pullback at this point in time, but you could already kind of feel, some of the attention going away, people moving on to the next shiny object, a lot of that type of stuff. Imagine if we see something, double that. That's something that I think is probably what we'll see, in my opinion. Again, when that happens, I have no idea for sure. If it even happens at all, I have no idea for sure. But that just kind of seems how things are kind of shaping up so far. If you are interested in trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, anything for that matter, I mean, feel free to use my link in the description below for BTCC. We are working with BTCC for another month. They have still continued to do the 10% bonus on first-time deposits, which is a fantastic deal. So if this is something that you are interested in and you are looking to potentially move exchanges or even diversify, where you're trading a lot of that type of stuff, I would say BTCC, definitely take a look at them. Overall, in addition to the 10%, you can see extra bonuses of up to $10,055 per user. They've been around for 13 years. So, basically, they've been around longer than most of us, I would say. 300 plus crypto futures. So like I was saying, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, XRP, ICP, any of the big ones they've got. You can trade up to 500x leverage. I don't recommend or do personally 500x leverage, but it's up to you. Obviously, you got to make your own decision there. And then also no VPN or KYC necessary if that is something that is incentivizing to you. So overall, like I said, feel free to check the link in my description below if that's something that you're interested in. Now, moving on, I wanted to get back into this market overview that we kind of took a tiny glimpse at here earlier. We can see if we zoom this out a little bit. Overall, we're seeing things look pretty frothy in this market. We're seeing open interest hold over 60 billion. If we look, the average RSI is 69.85. Overbought is 70. So, basically the entire market's sitting in strong or overbought at this point. We can see that, there's a couple that aren't in there, but look at all the dark red bubbles. Those are all overbought. So the entire market looking really, really frothy at this point. We look at the exchange liquidation map. Obviously, we just saw a pretty decent move to the upside in Bitcoin. So this isn't really super surprising, seeing a massive move to the downside, kind of at least favoring leverage. And generally, we've seen in the past that markets tend to move toward the leverage. I think we can understand why there. But then also on the crypto fear and greed index, extreme greed again. We've kind of been bouncing, at least recently, between kind of the high level of greed and the low level of extreme greed. So the fact that we're kind of sitting back in extreme greed, I think makes total sense given the moves that we've seen. Obviously, I'm a moderately surprised that we haven't seen even higher levels of extreme greed, given the fact that basically the entire major market is overbought. So I do think that is a little bit surprising to me. But overall, things looking pretty, like I said, pretty frothy. So I think this is kind of building the case that we're going to be seeing a somewhat larger pullback here soon. Again, when that happens, I have no idea for sure. If we look at the alt season index, we can see we are sitting at 80, which is officially in alt season. We can see if we go back, anything over 75 is alt season. Anything below 25 is Bitcoin season. Things have obviously moved to the alt season side incredibly rapidly. I do think given the recent moves on Bitcoin and some of the more mixed choppiness in the market, we may actually pull out of alt season a little bit back toward Bitcoin season. I don't think we'll get even close to probably re-entering Bitcoin season unless we see a larger pullback within the alt market. But there is that opportunity that, we'll at least maybe pull out of alt season back a little bit towards the more balanced area. So that's at least what I'm seeing here. One thing that I did want to take a look at is a tweet from Peter Schiff. Now, let me clarify that I don't really agree with most of what's in this tweet, but I do think it's important to realize kind of what he's getting at here. I think he's kind of over sensationalizing it a little bit, something like that. But overall, we can see that this is kind of what's happened to the Bitcoin ecosystem. And I do think it is a large part in why Bitcoin has grown so rapidly over this kind of past year or so, is because we are seeing massive, both political, governmental, institutional, all of these essentially the big institutions that kind of manage the world are kind of becoming more bought into Bitcoin, just generally. We're seeing BlackRock launched an ETF this year. The US is discussing a strategic reserve. China unbanned Bitcoin. Russia unbanned Bitcoin. We've got just institutions generally. There's an ETH ETF. Institutions are now looking at Solana and XRP ETFs, possibly. We've seen the XRP lawsuit go away. We've seen a lot that's really shown kind of a capitulation, I guess you could say, of the governments and institutions and larger entities kind of becoming pro-crypto, right? And so even though, like I said, this is kind of a little bit over sensationalized around hitting 100 grand maybe specifically, but I do think that this does make a lot of sense, right? MicroStrategy is a major buyer of Bitcoin. That's all one entity. All of this does kind of seem to fly a little bit in the face of kind of the general initial ethos of Bitcoin, which I do find a little bit ironic here. And I think that's he's kind of rightly pointing that out. Like I said, I don't know that agree completely with a lot of what he's saying, but I do think he has a valid point in saying that, maybe Bitcoin has been corrupted a little bit from what its kind of initial ethos was, in exchange for profits, essentially, which is always kind of the devil's bargain. Obviously, if you've been in early, the profits might make up for it, but it is something where, that I do kind of always think about that. Is this really the ethos that we want of Bitcoin if we essentially let major institutions and governments and all this type of stuff capture the majority of the supply? Then we essentially get back to where we started, sort of, right? I mean, obviously you can't print more Bitcoin, so that's a major thing that we have going in our favor, but it is something to consider and something to think about as we're kind of going through and continuing to grow the whole crypto space, because it does kind of beg the question. So anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and subscribe, because it really, really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, please feel free to drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything you want me to see, that would probably be a good way to do so. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.